Right, well, welcome to Design Your Future. We film these on Fridays, and this is really to help anybody, just give them some financial guidance on how to not only survive the COVID-19, but to thrive and to get through really any pandemic or anything that's coming your way. And one of the biggest things I've learned over the 5 years is really that you become the type of people you hang around with. Your associations are so powerful. And we met one another through LinkedIn, and I could tell right away you were someone that I want to associate with and become, generally a partner and help make the Maritimes, and even Canada, especially with going live here. We can think so much bigger than just our little hometowns now. We can really go worldwide, but to make the planet an even better place.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to pick your brain on a couple of things, answer some questions, see if you can help some business owners through these uncertain times, give them peace of mind, and
Right.
see how they can not only get through this, but excel. All right.
That sounds
So
wonderful. Yes.
how are things going? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I had just opened my business doors January 13th of 2020. So being able to flex my resilience muscle has really come to light for me. And it's all been about ensuring that I know my networks, and I'm expressing more vulnerability now and leaning on my different business partners for advice. And also to really putting efforts into how I can help other businesses.
And I think that's one of the benefits, if there is such thing as a benefit from here, that people have become more real.
Mm-hmm.
The true colors have shown. People have stepped up to the plate to accept the challenge that is out there. And before we get into some of the questions, just tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where you provide the most value. Who's your ideal client, I guess?
Of course, yeah. So I am Nova Scotian, born and raised. And so I'm an HR practitioner by trade, 10 plus years. 5 years ago, the short story of my why, I was sitting back in an HR leadership position, knowing that I didn't fit. And I say that because there's a lot of push-pull between teams, management, culture, operations. You know how it goes, Steve. And so I started thinking about, okay, like what's my superpower? What am I good at? What really lights me up? And those are the things like coaching, like facilitation, like being able to think outside the box when it comes to making sure operations really fit with teams. And so I had an opportunity to go out on my own, and so I jumped at it. And so I had been working on my business probably for 8 months prior to January, and thinking about it for 4 to 5 years prior to that. So I'm really excited to bring Intuitive Performance to small to mid-sized businesses, because I have the ability to help employers figure out their performance and what that looks like today, but then also elevate performance from a coaching and facilitation and workplace training perspective.
I love the fact that you said you know what you're good at, and then you're focused on the strengths. So many of us focus on what we're not good at, and then put all our time and energy into that, trying to get better. And if you're not good at something, you're only going to get good at it. But if you focus on what you're good at, you have that ability to get great. And that's
Right.
where the real income and all the secrets and the secret to success really comes from.
Mm-hmm.
But you seem to be doing pretty good. You mentioned you were doing 10 years in HR. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny being an engineer in HR. I know that engineers in HR groups generally butt heads a lot, but you seem to have a real good grasp on what makes people tick.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had that comfort zone where you were employed. What made you make that leap from employee to starting your own business?
That's a great question, Steve. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Even, when I reflect back on, my first job, I wanted to learn my job so quickly so that I could focus on, okay, what's the next step? and not so much the next step for me specifically, but looking broader in the sense of how does the organization tick? You know, what other departments are there? What other opportunities could there possibly be? And I fell in that as well. And so, you know, what I did from there was essentially I looked to continuously build on skill sets. And so that was doing things like reinvesting in my executive coaching and making sure that, you know, I was top of mind in organizations, especially from an HR perspective, because sometimes it's a bit of a dance to your point, to be heard or jostling with regards to business and operations. And so if I heard you correctly, Steve, your question was what made me jump into entrepreneurship, and it's always been there for me. So I've taken the path of making sure that I have the right skill sets around me or within me to take that entrepreneurial jump.
Hey, that's, you know, it is in some of us. That not everybody is out there to start their own business, but those that do want us to make the transition, or it's been on the back of our brain and we're just not sure of it. COVID-19, this is actually a great opportunity to decide if you want to start your own business. Sometimes you might be getting the swift kick in the butt to make the leap.
Yes.
What advice would you give to those that are either forced to start their own business or are thinking about starting their own business, or in the early process?
Right. So again, a great question. And immediately I go to a few places. You really ought to find out what you love to do to turn it into a business, but making sure you understand what that means because you're married to it. You really have to be able to eat, sleep, breathe it. And especially making sure that you have your support circles from your family, from your community right now. I mean, because there's two schools of thoughts that this is the hardest time and this is the best time. So it's really the time that you make of it. You know, Simon Sirk challenges that from a business perspective. This is not a new thing. We've gone through recessions before. We've gone through pandemics before. And it's really making sure that you have your plan A, B, and C. And if your business model is not working, then being able to honestly take your kind of personal biases off or your blinders off and asking your questions as to what can I do now? And sometimes, you know, your answer might come out that maybe it's not the right time, or it could be the answer that I need to really get resourceful around how I'm going to start and promote my business. The other things that come top of mind that I see a lot of value in is, you know, making sure you understand your government arms. So things like Nova Scotia Business Inc., your SEEDS, your CBDCs, all of these government entities have programs, especially right now, for small to mid-sized businesses or entrepreneurs that could either be by way of a financial loan, or it could be advisement or complimentary courses that you don't have to pay out of pocket for. So it's really important to understand your resources. On a personal level or an internal level, when you're an entrepreneur, you really have to be able to have self-kindness and reflection and have balance in between those. And you're smiling because you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's being able to ride the entrepreneurial roller coaster. So when things are high, you know, a mentor of mine said, when things are high, be grateful, celebrate, but don't fall into that high, as well as don't fall into those lows, right? It's all about, you know, trying to hold your course and making sure that you're building on your own self-confidence and knowing when to take a break. Myself, I always tend to throw myself into projects. So I have found that scheduling especially is important so that you can find that balance and your self-care.
Yes, I wish I had that great advice when I first started off.
And I mean, the other piece of it too, Steve, that comes top of mind for me are two coach approach questions. How can I serve my customer? And then identifying, researching, and fulfilling that question. And then the second question is constantly asking yourself, instead of why me, what can I learn from this?
Those are two powerful questions. How can I serve my customer? And what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
I totally agree. And we are out there to serve. And that it's funny. it's one of the most selfish things you can do to go and help others. That's one of the reasons I love this business. When I truly do provide value to someone else, you can't put a price tag on that feeling.
Right.
And I'm sure it's the same with you.
Yes. Yes.
It's the eat, sleep, and breathe. A lot of people have that idea, when I start my business, I'm going to have all this free time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you would agree, when you're starting your own business, it actually takes way much more time than a conventional job.
Yes.
But the beauty of it is you have control of that time.
Yes.
So it's a completely different thing. Yes, you're putting much more time, but you have that control. And that's something powerful in its said, that you actually you have the ability to control your own fate. So a lot of it does come down to your mindset. For those that think this is the worst of time, it is going to be the worst of time. Those that think that this is a great opportunity, they're probably going to find opportunity.
Exactly. It's all in how you spin it, and then how you act upon it as well. I'm finding myself as an entrepreneur, I have fantastic ideas. Execution is the hardest thing. So to your point, it goes back down to, where's my balance? What can I do? And I'm learning now, the smart approach anyways for my business model is to learn what I do, learn what I want to create it, and then potentially sub it out, so that I can continue to move on and sell my business.
And that's the thing. A lot of entrepreneurs, speaking for myself, and I know engineers are very similar to this, as we try to do everything on our own. We try to figure out everything on the own. But you mentioned there earlier, there is help out there.
Right.
I've noticed a huge shift in Nova Scotia in the last couple of years of the entrepreneur mind, but there are people out there, there's communities. And if you can surround yourself with people that have done what you're trying to do and are successful at it, you're going to be that much further ahead, that much faster. So you don't have to do it all on your own. Just like you mentioned, there are ways to get not only financial assistance, but to get really good help and surround yourself with pros.
Exactly. And I mean, those are things like your associations as well. So, there's the chamber, there's the Fall River Business Association, which is close to me. There's BNI. There's so many others, Center of Women in Business, and just making sure that your objectives and your values align with those associations, and the people that associate with the same. Those are all, I think, really great keys, and then being able to commit to those endeavors as well, because some of them, require you to put some time aside to participate, but it's a win-win. It's another form of marketing, essentially, and creating, a network of trusted professionals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wish I knew a lot of that stuff when I first started off. One of the things I did learn, and I pass on to others, is the rule of thirds. Now, if you just hang around with people that are uber successful all the time, and people that are killing it wherever they go, you're not going to feel adequate. Your confidence is going to go down. So you only want to spend about a third of your time with them. And I don't want to sound elitist, but then a third of your time with people that are, your equals at this current time. And then a third of your time with people that you can raise up.
Right.
And that will change over time as you grow.
Of course.
During this time of uncertainty, what advice can you give to the leaders, the employers out there, HR, during these uncertain times? What are some things that they can be doing or should be doing to make sure that they're going to be fine?
Right, exactly. Another good question, Steve. And I think a lot of it is the same advice: knowing your programs, or reaching out for assistance to understand those programs and how they apply to you. Because there's a little bit for everybody out there. And essentially what I'm getting at is making sure that cash flow is sustainable, and then looking to reinvest in your business, because now's the time to look at, what does my business model mean to me as a business owner, specifically, or an entrepreneur? How do I make sure that I keep my workforce engaged, if not at part-time work? If not, can I keep them fully employed through all of this? And looking at efficiencies, what makes sense, right? I think those are all large things that sometimes we get a little bit too busy to put a lot of time and investment in, but now's the time to do it, because we can set new ways of doing business as well, right? And also too, like from the non-financial perspective, looking at your succession plan, like looking back to your original objectives of your business might have been to grow to a substantial position, but now it may be looking at a succession plan. So things can really change in light of this time, and making sure that you have the right resources around you to do so. I also think that now is the time to really look internally as a business owner, and kind of have checks and balance. So maybe have someone else checking in with you like a coach. Or you might have other professionals just checking in to make sure that you're okay as a person, because oftentimes we can get daunted by trying to figure out what's our next step. And that can increase our stress, right? So making sure that our stress is at a reasonable level so that we can align our business to the needs of this environment, but also looking forward.
Totally agree. And, you know, I got bogged down with a lot of the news that was on. There was such bad news here in Nova Scotia. And
right.
You can get bogged down by the media. That human touch is so important. The fact that you mentioned there's a lot of programs like COVID-19, there's a lot of COVID. We live in a country and a province that is really out there to help. There's a lot of funding out there.
Right.
Is that something that you can see? I can see it being used. This is the ideal time to get that coach,
yes.
Get the funding, grow, get ready to excel, because this will pass, as you mentioned before.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that?
I can't agree more with you, Steve, in the sense that, you know, now's the time to pause, right? It's time to pause, reevaluate everything, get things in order that you need to, from the sense of your financial assistance if you need it, and then realigning your strategy to make sure that you're just able to slingshot, you know, once things open back up for our markets.
Awesome. I got a little cat in here. I'm going to let him out. I'll show you him. She's pretty cute. Christmas present for our kids. 1 second.
That's awesome.
Here. There you go. It's business unusual here in the East Coast, but
oh
here
my
we go.
goodness.
Just let you outside.
Certainly.
Yeah, business is definitely different.
It is.
I think this might be the new norm, though. It might be.
Well, and I mean, I find that it's, you know, it's a lot more acceptable now than it was in past, right? When we think about, I think it was a year or two ago, there was a news reporter reporting remotely, and the child kind of went through the background. It was really funny. It was kind of, you know, off the cuff or out of the norm. And now, you know, I mean, I'm doing an Elevate Business Challenge with another co-owner of mine from nearby Planet VR, Mary Helen Ryder. And, you know, my son came in with our kitten, and he was like putting it on view for everybody. So there's a lot of funny occurrences like that. So no worries, Steve.
Yeah, it's almost become the norm for whenever I'm sitting with clients or doing anything. There's something coming in.
Yeah,
usually a 3-year-old with a hurt finger, but.
That's okay. I think there was a second part to that question around advice for HR professionals. And, you know, that's near and dear to my heart, having my own HR bias here, of course, having lived it. You know, the first thing that I want to say to HR professionals out there right now is keep up the fantastic work. Now more than ever, you know, organizations are relying on you as an HR person, not just for your expertise, but also assisting the organization taking care of its employees. So, you know, to that I say, make sure you're leaning on your HR peers or your HR groups, if you're a part of one, for your support to ensure that, you know, you have an outlet for self-care as well.
Awesome. One of the things I really focus on when I'm designing a plan for my clients, and it's not just all financials, and I think that's one of the things that I like so much about you. We have a lot in common here, that we focus on the why first. The why. If you can figure out who you are and who you want to become, what your strengths are and really hammer down on those superpowers. That's where your real success is going to come from. And I ask this question to my clients, and I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm looking forward to the answer.
Okay.
Now, if you knew you had only 1 hour left on this planet, maybe you're jumping on a spaceship that Elon Musk built. Maybe it's taken off and can't go. You never know. Okay, so it's not necessary you're dying. It's just that you're leaving the planet Earth.
Right.
For that hour, who are you spending that time with? What are you doing? And what advice would you pass on?
Wow, that's a big question, Steve. I would definitely spend the time with my family. That's without a doubt. We would be probably doing some form of hiking or kayaking, something outdoors. And if I only had an hour left, it would be a mixture, and it would probably look a little erratic because I'd want to be having fun with them, but also passing on as much information as possible. So there'd be a lot of kind of back and forth with jokes, and then trying to make sure that I distill confidence and, self-awareness and kindness and, what are you going to be when you grow up, and all of those great things.
That's awesome. I want to put on the site here. How's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Oh, thank you. So I'm on LinkedIn. I have a page under Intuitive Performance and a personal profile, Ange MacCabe. I also have a Facebook page as well under Intuitive Performance. And my Intuitive website is www.intuitiveperformance.com. And I also offer complimentary consultations from workplace training. So that's a bit of the advisory side of things, coaching and facilitation.
I really enjoyed our time. Is there any leaving thoughts, anything that you'd like to pass on to the people that are watching this video?
Another great question. I think from a business perspective, Steve, it's really just forward focus. In short, making sure you have your resources, making sure that you're taking care of yourself and the people around you, as well as your business. These are challenging times, but we're definitely going to get through them.
We are going to get through them. And those that get your help and our help, there's really two ways to go through this. Knowledge, I look at it as really only potential power. It's what you do with your knowledge, and you can either take this knowledge and try to apply it on your own, or you can seek out and get professional help and allow others take this step-by-step process so you can excel. And my hat's off to you.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate what you're doing for our community and reaching out to business owners and consultants like myself. So thanks again.
Hey, right back at you. And that's the whole goal. I want my kids to be able to have the ability to stay here when they grow up and contribute to the prosperity, not have to take off like, unfortunately, a lot of Maritimers do to find work. So,
right.
Again, kind of a selfish goal, but I share the same thoughts and beliefs as you, as we can make this an even better place. And now is the time to be very successful. It is that pivot point for a lot of us.
Exactly.
All right. Well, stay safe, be healthy, and continue to be great. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Steve. Be well.
All right, be well. Bye-bye.